So, I have built a PC and I want to show you guys how. Let's begin. This is the newest addition to my setup. I wouldn't necessarily call it budget, but it doesn't break the bank either. 1080p ultra gaming in most of the games, as well as 4K video editing capabilities. The test I performed on it will come in a separate video, as there's a lot to talk about. Right now, let's focus on how we build a PC. First things first, I recommend you to use a website like PC Part Picker when choosing the parts, as well as doing research to make educated decisions, as some parts might fit the purpose of your machine better. A site like PC Part Picker will help you choose compatible parts, which is very important. Like, you cannot fit an Intel processor on a motherboard which is specifically made for an AMD chip. In my case, the focus was gaming and video editing in 4K, so I had to get a decent mix of components. It wasn't easy, and I still have to test stuff in order to convince myself that this was the best that I could. The configuration I went with is a Gigabyte B550 Eagle Wi-Fi 6 motherboard, so we got an AM4 platform, AMD Ryzen 7 5800X for the chip, 36GB of DDR4 RAM at 3600 MHz, Samsung 980 EVO 1TB SSD, and a Sparkle Intel B580 for the GPU department. The source that I chose is a no-name in most parts of this world. We talk about an Akiris Magenta LE. I also got the CPU cooler and I got the case for free. The total cost of the machine was around $900 here in Romania, Eastern Europe, with all the parts bought from the same website, PC Garage. Some of you might have a smaller or a bigger budget, and we will discuss about different configurations and recommendations in future videos and streams. Yes, I'm planning to start streaming on this channel, and I hope that people will join us and enjoy. Now, let's talk about the hardest part, putting everything together. And yes, there might be stuff which can go wrong, but do not be afraid. As long as you are patient and pay attention, you will be fine. I've encountered some issues in my build as well, so yeah. You will also need a screwdriver and maybe some containers for your screws. It might be helpful. The first thing that we need to do is to secure ourselves and protect the motherboard of static current. Motherboard and some components are quite sensible to static current, hence they come packed into anti-static bags. When we work with them, we need to be grounded. We do that by using this, an anti-static wristband, which is something like $2 to $3. All you need to do is to strap this to your arm or foot, then get the other end connected to the power supply, which needs to be plugged into the electricity socket, but turned off. That's it. From here, you can continue safely. When I build a PC, I stick with the following order: chip, RAM, SSD, CPU cooler, motherboard in case, GPU, test, cable management, close the case. Let's start with getting the motherboard out of the package. I recommend using the box as the working surface, as it is anti-static as well. Also, when handling the motherboard, try and avoid the small circuits and use stuff like the I/O interface or slot coverings. Now you can have a look over the slots and connectors to familiarize yourself with it. Then you can go to the next step, mounting the CPU. I believe this is the most stressing step, but it ain't that bad. Open up the socket and have a look. Depending on the socket and generation, you will either have the pins on the chip or the motherboard. In both cases, you will find a small triangle on one corner of the chip and the socket, which you need to align afterwards. No pressure needed, just let the chip fall on the socket. After you made sure everything is in place and aligned, close the socket, and that's it. Then we move to the RAM. In most of the cases, you will find either 2 or 4 slots next to the CPU, as close as possible. What's important to remember here is that the RAM works the best when configured in dual channel. By dual channel, I mean that if you want to use 16 gigs of RAM, for example, you'll get better results with 2 8GB sticks rather than one 16 gigs. Then if you have 4 slots on the motherboard, mount the sticks on either first and third slot or second and fourth slot, never next to each other, apart from the situations when you have 4 sticks. When mounting them, make sure the slot is open. You will have a locking handle on the side of the slot. Open that, then make sure you align the stick properly. Look at the pins and press. It might take more pressure than you would expect, but do not be afraid. Just push until you hear a click. Time for the SSD. I strongly recommend you getting an M2 NVMe SSD, as it is the better and faster technology, as well as easy to install. The price is also quite the same with the SATA SSDs, and it's just superior to that. You should find one slot somewhere underneath the chip, and that is the one you should use. It might have a heatsink on top, so remove it and take your SSD, fit it in the slot, and then lower it down. You will need a screw to fix it there, which is normally included in your motherboard package, and afterwards you can mount the heatsink on top if you want. But please do not forget to peel out the sticker before. The last thing we need before mounting the motherboard in the case is to mount the CPU cooler. Here I strongly recommend you to read the manual inside the box, which shows you how to mount it for different sockets and adapt the mount. Read it and adjust the mounting on the motherboard accordingly, and don't forget, just take your time. In my case, we have an M4 socket, so I need to change some stuff on the motherboard. The main takeaway here is actually two things: the thermal paste and the sticker on the cooler. Don't be scared of the thermal paste. You should have a spreader included in the package, which will help you spread it evenly on the surface of the chip. Do not exaggerate with the quantity, just adjust it if you see it is not enough. As simple as that. Remove the sticker of the cooler, very important, mount it, and you are ready to go. Time to put the motherboard in the case. Get your case and look at it. Motherboards are coming in different sizes: ATX, M-ATX, Mini ITX, etc. Make sure your case can fit it. In my situation, I'm using an ATX. Have a look at it and see if you have the standoffs mounted. Some cases come with them mounted already, so just have a look to make sure you got everything there. If not, the case should come with extra standoffs and an adapter for your screwdriver. Before mounting the motherboard, a couple of things. The I/O shield of your motherboard needs to be mounted, in case it's not mounted on the motherboard already. In some cases it will be, but most of the time you will have to do that. You will mount it in the back by pressing each corner individually. Make sure that there are no metal pins sticking out at the back. Those might damage your ports. Then I would suggest you to have a look at the cables in the case. You will have the front I/O and the buttons, plus the fans, if you have any already mounted on the case. Mount the motherboard by placing it carefully from an angle to fit the I/O shield, and make sure that the holes are properly aligned with the standoffs, and start placing screws in. What I've done, I have installed the I/O shield back here. Yeah, this is the I/O shield. Then when I placed the motherboard inside, I made sure that this will fit into the I/O shield, and like that, you see I have them lined up on the standoffs. Two types of screws, here and here, yeah. Managed to screw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the motherboard, yeah. So I got the motherboard on the case. 6 will be enough, because I've got 3 on the left, 3 on the right. I'm covering the corners and everything. Oh, I actually got an extra one down here. If I want, I can place one here as well, but it's not really mandatory. It is fine as it is. I've also decided to put the heatsink over the SSD, just for the aesthetics. And yeah, that's what we have got until now. Your case might come with different sizes of screws. Just try and see which one fits the best. Make sure you do not catch any wire or force the motherboard on any side. You do not want that. After putting in the motherboard, the scariest part of them all: cable connection and initial management. And do not worry, it's not that bad, it just takes some time, but you will get it done. You'll have to connect the front I/O, a CPU fan, RGB and power, other fans power and RGB if applicable, CPU power and other additional stuff if there are any. One USB, so this is the front USB right here. This is the USB 3 and this is the front audio. Yeah, so basically what I did, I routed them, so the USB 2 and the audio, yeah. So I took them through this hole right here, and then the USB 3 through this one. So it will be a sort of an order. It's not that big of a deal, but it works for now. Now we need to actually connect the power supply. I usually recommend a full modular PSU as it allows you to only use the cables you need. If not, that's fine as long as you know what goes where. So you'll need a SATA connector, the 24-pin connector, the 8-pin for the CPU, and the 8 or double 8 pins for the PCIe in which your GPU goes. There is a slight difference between them, which you need to know. The EPS or CPU cable can be divided into two 4-pins connectors, while the PCIe can be divided into 6 pins and 2 pins. Depending on the case, the PSU can go in different places, so I strongly recommend you to read the manuals and make sure that the PSU fan has a space with a filter to breathe. In my case, it's mounted at the bottom backside with the fan oriented downwards. Okay, so now I got all of my front I/O, I got an RGB there, I got the power switch and the reset switch there, there's the fan, yeah, there's the CPU fan, then we got the CPU power right there, this one. Then we got the 24-pin right here, and we also got the PCIe 8 pins, double 8 pins for my GPU. Get all the cables connected where they need to, and last but not least, the GPU. Make sure the slot has the blocking handle out of the way. Then look at the pins, because they should have a protection case or film on them. Take that off, see how many panels you need to take off from the back, then align it with the slot. Push it until you hear a click, fix it with the screws in the case, and then, if you need and have a sag bracket, mount that as well. Connect the 8-pin connector, or 2 8-pins if needed, and just do a last check over everything. Now, I personally encountered an issue here. The GPU pins were not properly aligning with the slot, and that's because the GPU barely fits the case, even though I checked before to make sure it will. But for some reason, I couldn't really get the pins to align, and because of that, I had to go with some unorthodox practices. I had some issues with the graphics card, because as you can see, I will need to move this fan right here. Hopefully I can move it a bit upwards and see if that works. If not, we'll see how the temperatures are looking. But yeah, I had to force, I basically had to force the case here, unfortunately, and I didn't look at the slots as I should have. But yeah, that's totally on me. It is what it is. It's here, it's connected. And now our PC is ready for a first boot. Let's see if it works. I'm going to blame the case here, but it taught me an important lesson. Choose a case which can take your GPU in, plus 20 to 30 millimeters extra at least. I eventually managed to fit and connect everything, so yeah. Now, the big moment. Turn on the PSU and see if your PC turns on, which normally it should. Time to see. So, power is on. Please. Yeah, so we have RGB. Yeah, baby. Now please turn on. Yeah, baby. You should see the booting screen. And if that is the case, congratulations. You can restart and enter the BIOS to make sure the motherboard recognizes everything. If yes, you're good to go, and do some cable management to make sure everything is tight and secure. Put the panels back, install the OS, the drivers, and you got your PC now. It took me around 1.5 hours to do everything, including installing Windows, the drivers, some games, and to make sure everything is working properly. And I hope this was easy but comprehensive at the same time. I would like to hear your experiences now. If you've ever built a PC, how was it and how hard you found it? For me, tests are still undergoing with this specific machine, and we will start streaming and coming up with more build ideas for you. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. That's it for this video. I hope you liked it and found it useful. As always, do not forget that your feedback and support helps us a lot. Hence, I invite you to subscribe and comment to our videos. I'll see you guys with a new video next week. Until then, you take care of yourself. Bye bye.